It is my great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to participate in this conference on the very delicate subject matter of contemporary and forthcoming urbanization processes. My presentation and the following one by my colleague Franz Oswald will offer a kind of narrative shop talk on our work. As Alice did in Through the Looking Glass, we will enter another world, and from there take a glance back through the mirror at a world that we think to know. The mirror, in this case, being Africa, l'Afrique noire, or le miroir de l'Afrique, as suggested by the French writer Michel Leiris at the beginning of the 20th century. Specifically, we would like to take you to Ethiopia. Let's see if it works, and to its capital, Addis Ababa. Ethiopia has approximately 80 million inhabitants, and Addis Ababa approximately 4 to 5 million inhabitants. And today we are celebrating the Ethiopian New Year. Low on the list of rankings, such as the Human Development Index, Ethiopia is repeatedly cast as one of the poorest nations in the world. This investigation needed a title and was eventually called by our students with a sense of wit, Addis Through the Looking Glass. And I skipped the slide, let me see. Addis Through the Looking Glass. But humor aside, our work could be summarized under the heading From in vitro to in vivo and vice versa, addressing the correlation or interdependence between theory and practice. On the one hand, work done within the confines of academia in vitro, and on the other hand, work done on-site in vivo or underground, so to say. Here we need to recognize that in the history of ideas, theory has generally been placed above practice, hierarchically distinguishing the high and the low, i.e. the clean realm of discourse placed above the domain of dirty manual labor. A disposition that must be questioned, acknowledging that practice will undoubtedly contaminate the purity of intellectual thought. So let me be more specific. Our work on and in Ethiopia evolved along three practice-oriented trajectories that could be summarized under the captions the school, the book, and the town. Three products that emerged from a collaboration between ETH Zurich and Addis Ababa University pertaining to the relation between teaching, research, and practice. But first, a few remarks on what we found there entering the mirror of Africa. The initial perception was marked by preconceived impressions of Africa as depicted in Western literature, confirming atmospheres that exude an air of exoticism to any outside observer. The dynamics of transactions, the hustle and bustle of activities, the assortment of goods, as well as the colors and smells are indeed breathtaking. We even saw informality where none existed and projected our image of slum settlements onto the housing stock of the city, not knowing that this low-rise carpet of shelters is based on a highly structured and formalized norms of collective organization. In other words, we at first saw what we wanted to see: informality, Africa as the other, as opposed to us, and strikingly different. A closer look in the mirror, however, brought other aspects of Africa to the forefront, pertaining to the influence of global markets on indigenous culture, leaving their traces on the organization of physical and social space. Office buildings clad in curtain walls of glass, or suburbia-type developments emerging at the fringes of Addis Ababa, the construction of a ring road circumscribing the core of the city, cutting through neighborhoods, tenement constructions such as the Grand Housing project supported by the German Society for International Cooperation with toilet balls manufactured in China, and a new phenomenon, large-scale land transfers from the public hands to foreign investors for food and flour production intended for export, generally known as land grabbing. And there is more to come, with investors and developers, whether private companies or public sovereign funds, knocking at the door, all bringing new forms of colonization to Africa. With China as an important player, offering funds for infrastructure projects, as for example the construction of a freeway interchange on the left, or gifts such as the new African Union headquarters on the right that was inaugurated just a few months ago by the President of the People's Republic of China. As announced in a Merrill Lynch publication, The New Africa, its investing's final frontier, a land of vast untapped resources and markets and people eager for progress. Africa, in other words, is a contested territory, up for grabs, with multiple players claiming the right to appropriate its resources, leaving a continent in pieces. Ultimately giving credence to the African Union's call, Africa must unite, as propagated on its website portal. The school. The original purpose of our expedition was quite simple. We were asked to present our thoughts on education in view of a proposed university reform in a lecture series organized by the Addis Ababa University, the Ethiopian Engineering Capacity Building Program, and the German Society for International Cooperation. So this was our entry. The title of the lecture series, Engineering Towards Development and Change, foregrounded engineering as a discipline, neither architecture nor urban design, which were considered subcategories of engineering. To be brief, the issue debated at the follow-up symposium was the impending urbanization of the country and thus the need for a strong school of architecture that would also include urban design. One specific issue addressed that would later become important to our work was the need to strengthen rural communities and to improve conditions in small villages in order to slow down migration to the cities. In any case, the debates on education led to an official agreement between the Swiss Federal Council and the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, ratified in English and Amharic in 2008. This in turn facilitated our efforts to establish an academic exchange with Addis Ababa University, with both faculty and students joining ETH Zurich for a year, returning then to Ethiopia to teach or continue their studies. And a group of the students are here today. But most importantly, members of the team under the leadership of Franz Oswald were instrumental in convincing the government to create a new school, the Ethiopian Institute of Architecture, Building Construction and City Development, and to allocate a series of buildings for a new campus with Dirk Hebel, who is going to be talking on Friday, he's here in the audience, as director of the school. So he was given a campus that required to be fixed. The site needed to be cleaned, chairs were recycled and repaired, teaching spaces furbished, and equipment installed. We never thought that academic work would take us to this adventure. And with this, teaching could finally begin, with design studios addressing the pressing problems of urban and rural transformation, offering specific proposition presented either by analog or digital techniques. The credits here go to the faculty of young Ethiopian and European architects working in tandem and who basically did magic. One specific next phase of the school project involved a collaboration with other disciplines focusing on the use of construction materials within the building sector. Most materials and products in Ethiopia are imported, which makes no sense whatsoever, considering the vast amount of local resources. A summer school involving the building of a sustainable dwelling unit, thus the acronym SUDU, was launched with students from a series of disciplines, basically testing alternative construction techniques using local materials, such as walls made of compressed mud and clay and vaulted thin shell construction for ceilings and roofs, a project in part supported by Philip Bloch, who is going to chair the Young Scientist Group tomorrow afternoon. Or later, in a workshop on the use of bamboo as an easily available and fast-growing material for the construction of small structures, such as a pavilion for a local textile exhibition, again done by the students and faculty of the new school. These experiments opened new research venues, such as Dear Cable's investigations into novel uses of local materials, and established the basis for an understanding of construction methods that could potentially be deployed in the proposed towns in rural regions. This, at least, was the intention. The book. At this point, we were ready to publish our first observations in a series of essays in international academic journals. This is what we do as academics, presenting our findings to the scientific community on projections for urban and rural transformation in Ethiopia. And very few people read probably these essays. We had the opportunity to exhibit the work at the Venice Biennale, using the installation as another vehicle to further accelerate research work, in this case through the production of several film clips, conceived as a comparative analysis of urban and rural scenes in the Western world and Africa, and focusing on specific subject matters such as the circulation of goods, food security, water management, mobility, and their effects on the constitution of territory. This analysis established a foundation that were projected both on screens and on models in the Swiss pavilion at the Biennale of the urban terrain, and you see here one of these projections on a probe of the territory in Ethiopia, taking research now into the realm of design. It seemed, however, more important to show the work in Addis Ababa in order to promote a discourse on future projections of the city. The problem was that we could not find an appropriate space on campus to exhibit the projects. Thus, we proposed to construct a building using discarded shipping containers to frame the structure of an exhibition building that would be donated to the university. Containers are, as a matter of fact, are used throughout the city as building components, recirculated and recycled within construction for particular purposes. So the structure was erected and the exhibition installed, showing design work done by African and European students in the context of design research studios. The projects were used as platforms, and this was extremely important to us, for discussions with state officials, local authorities, members of the architectural profession, reinforcing the notion of urban design as a forum for debates on the future of the city. Two projects in particular attracted attention. A proposition on the left for a network of towns surrounding Addis Ababa in order to strengthen agricultural communities, a type of semi-urbanization of the countryside, and on the right, a project done by my partner Sarah Graham, a housing project as an alternative to the official grant housing program, using a combination of prefab and self-built construction with the support of micro and small enterprises within the construction sector. Such propositions need to be made public. In collaboration with our Ethiopian partners, we co-edited a series of issues of the local architectural journal Construction Ahead on urban transformation. And I can guarantee you, everybody within the field read those essays compared to the academic ones that nobody even looked at. All this ultimately led to the book Cities of Change, Addis Abeba, co-edited by Dirk Kabel on transformation strategies for territory in Ethiopia, with a focus on urban developments in rural regions as demonstrated in a series of town propositions for strengthening agricultural communities. The town. Welcome to Bura Nest, the acronym NEST standing for New Ethiopian Sustainable Town. Under the leadership of Franz Oswald, work on one of the proposed towns had progressed for a site in Bura near Dahia Bar in the Amhara region, in the north of Addis Abeba. Work had progressed with a series of plans for the gradual development of an urban framework that could grow over time. The Nest Town Group was allotted a site on a publicly owned piece of land, a commons near a village that could hardly sustain itself in terms of food production. The project included a system of water distribution channels for agriculture, a tree nursery, as well as simple shelters equipped with rainwater tanks that you see on the right. The plans, including construction documents and engineering calculations, were further developed at the Future Cities Laboratory in Singapore, which offered us the financial resources to pursue the project within the framework of the Seoul Workshop, Seoul being the acronym for Singapore Ethiopian Urban Laboratory, organized by Franz Oswald and involving a group of young scientists from a series of disciplines. Our collaboration on site, a young Swiss and an Ethiopian architect, are working in tandem, in situ, to organize the construction process and secure communication with local authorities. The town was inaugurated in an official ceremony with community representatives and members of the Nest Town Group, including Dieter Leple, who talked this morning, in the summer of 2010, with the laying of a foundation stone and an endless number of endless speeches. But somehow things went wrong. A few weeks later, the small monument was destroyed, as local stakeholders believed that our project was nothing other than a ruse to land grab publicly owned land for industrial agriculture. Basically, we had relied on communication with public representatives and neglected to directly involve an important group of local farmers. So in order to remedy the situation, a public meeting was organized with the support of the local priest, acting as translator and mediator. A digital projector was installed, powered by a car battery, and drawings were projected on the wall. The team was given the opportunity to explain the undertaking's objectives. We basically received feedback from the community, and a new plan was drawn showing the key components of the project: the water basin, the tree nursery, the roads, the bridge, the town factory, etc. The plan was submitted to the town council for approval, leading to another public meeting under the fig tree, followed by a referendum that took place in the fall of 2011. This is democracy in action. The community unanimously endorsed the project. And with this, construction could begin first of an access road leading to the site and connecting the new neighborhood with the existing village, followed by the building of a water catchment basin and dam. A rendering of a housing unit was displayed on an existing structure, as you see here in the image, to train the workers. And in the next slide, images that we recently received, the digging of the first foundations and the construction of a prototype frame for a housing unit. And we will hear more from Franz Oswald on the specifics of the project. The most recent development of this venture involves the strengthening of communal ties. A delegation from a Swiss housing cooperative visited the site a few months ago to establish a dialogue with European cooperatives, such as the Cooperative Promotion Agency of the Amhara region, which shared its philosophy of promoting the empowerment of stakeholders through the formation of formal collective entities, whether in the form of agricultural, housing, or water cooperatives. The meeting ended with an exchange of presents, including the so-called rainbow flag of the international cooperative movement, symbolizing solidarity, diversity, and inclusiveness. 2012 being the United Nations International Year of Cooperatives. This is where we currently stand. Thank you for your attention.